Hey, what's up guys? David Gen 3D Tech again. Welcome to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Ironcat HPC02M Pro. If you're going to watch one review today, this is the one you're going to want to watch, and this is the one you're going to want to tell your friends about. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first off, I'd like to thank Mechkeys for providing this sample for this review. But as always, my opinions are my own and it never influences my reviews. So first off, I just wanted to show you everything you get with this mouse. The mouse is $150, so that is a rather expensive mouse. But I do want to say you do get a lot for that mouse. And when you actually add up all the stuff you get, it does come out to a pretty good deal where you're not paying that much for the mouse if you bought all this other stuff. Now, if you don't care about this other stuff, then maybe this mouse isn't for you. But overall, I think it's a pretty good package. And there's some stuff in here that's, better than others. But let's go over what you get. Obviously, you get the mouse, and as you can see, it's has RGB. You get two different back shells with different levels of hump in the back. This one right here sticks out a little bit more and hits the back of your palm just a little bit more, so you're gonna get a little bit more contact there than the other one. The other one's a little bit slimmer. I prefer this one right here, but it gives you a nice set of options. And I guess you can also put graphics on here, and you can also write on this, and it'll shine through. I probably won't do that, but it is still kind of a cool little feature. If you're an artist, you can do something up. And there is quite a bit of RGB effects in the software that you can do to play around with this. So if you do like RGB, it is pretty cool. And also, this is the transparent black shell. There's a solid white one, a solid black one, and then there's a transparent white one, which is extremely see-through. This is very much similar to the in-game gear. Has the same kind of shell. That's this kind of transparent, cloudy black. I think it's a good-looking shell, which is why I picked this one for this review. The mouse itself has a 3395 sensor in it, and it comes default with the KL 8.0 switches. As you can see right here, the switches right here are hot swappable. You just pop these open and you can pull out the switches with the switch puller. Comes with 4 extra sets of switches. So again, you have the KL 8.0s, and then you have TTC Gold, Omron switches, Huano black shell pink dot, and Huano blue shell pink dot. So you have a nice variety of switches to choose from that should fit just about anybody's desires and needs. And later on in the video, I will have sound tests for each switches, and then I'll also give a description of how they feel. Now there is a cheaper version, the non-pro version of this mouse. I don't know if Mechkeys has that, but you can probably get it on Taobao, and it doesn't have the Hotswap, so it just comes with it soldered in there. So if you don't want to mess with that, you might want the cheaper version. I think that one's like $93, but I'm not 100% certain. And I don't know if you get all this stuff with that version. Now, I don't know what encoder the scroll wheel is. There's some mumbo jumbo about how great it is, and it's a pretty good scroll wheel. It's real quiet, feels nice and tactile. I like the scroll wheel quite a bit. The side switches are really nice and tactile. The DPI button, it's fine. It's a DPI button. And then on the bottom, the skates actually I think are pretty nice. Now, I don't know if there's going to be any third-party support for these skates, but you do get, as I'll show you, you do get some extra skates in here, so you probably will be fine for the life of this mouse. You also get a little screwdriver, which can adjust the tension on the switches with it, which is a very cool feature. Now, I haven't messed with the tensioning on it. I usually don't, but because the tensioning I think is good. But if you don't like it, you can definitely adjust it with this. Another thing you get in the box is you get an Ironcat space bar. So nothing fancy, but if you need a space bar for your keyboard, you get this. This is probably one thing that I really don't care much about. If it was not in here, it's definitely not a reason to buy it, but it's a freebie. Now this, some people might actually like, and it's a carrying case for your mouse. So if you're someone that likes to take your mouse places with you, you can put it in here and keep it nice and protected. It's a cool little container and definitely a worthwhile add-on. You get a nice set of grips. These are pretty nice grips, actually. You get an extra set of PTFE feet, like I said, so you should be good on feet. And then you get a set of Infinity Glides, which are glass feet. So if you want to try glass feet on this, you got glass feet. So you got basically 3 sets of skates on your mouse. The ones that come with, the extra set, and then the glass. Yeah. So I think these are like little PTFE feet that can cover the little switch holders. So that's all the goodies in there. Now, one of the cool things that also comes with, let me clean this up a little bit so you can get a good look at it. Oh, and of course you get a braided cable with a USB-C adapter and then the wireless receiver. And both are labeled Incott. I guess that's how you pronounce it. It's really Ironcat. I don't know if they're trying to rebrand as something else, but it is an Ironcat mouse. But for some reason, they labeled this mouse Incott. So now I wanted to pull back and give you a nice look. So this mouse pad also comes with the mouse. And it is a very nice looking mouse pad. It's a cloth mouse pad, kind of a hybrid cloth mouse pad. It's got a texture to it. It's not abrasive, but it is kind of a soft texture. As you can see, it's also got the Incott logo. It has a standard base. Stitching is nothing special. I believe it's 4mm thick. As you can see, currently I've got it on top of my Super Glide pad, which is 490 by 420. So this is probably 480 by 400 is my guess, but I'm not 100% sure. Now I'm not going to do a mouse pad review on this just because the only way to get this mouse pad that I know of is buying this mouse. I would say this is probably a $25, $30 mouse pad at best. It's nothing special, but it's a decent pad, and it's definitely a good looking pad. I've had a lot of people ask me about it, but it's probably similar to like an AC Plus. As you can see, it's not super fast. It's more of a control pad. It's a decent overall pad. I definitely have no problem recommend using it. So, but when you add this in, it definitely adds to the value of the mouse. So if you're looking for a mouse and you need a new mouse pad and you want a good looking one with a nice design, that definitely adds to the value of the whole package. And the design, though, I will say is one of my favorites. So I do like the design a lot. And it would be cool if they actually sold this. Maybe they do sell it somewhere, but I haven't been able to find it for sale anywhere. So again, if you want this mouse pad, you'll unfortunately have to buy the whole package. Now, as far as the shape goes, it's a very interesting shape. This is the X2 Mini. And as you can see, the size is pretty much identical. Now, the X2 is definitely flatter on the sides, and this tapers in, very similar to the Lamzu Atlantis Mini. The difference is the hump in the back. It's got more of a hump than the X2 does. And on the Atlantis Mini, you can see the hump is more up here, the high point. whereas on this mouse it's back towards here. I also don't really like the name of this mouse. I mean, it's kind of a mouthful. I wish they just gave it a simpler name because I don't know what to call it. So, I mean, it's quite the mouthful having to say HPC02M Pro. So that's one thing I wouldn't mind them changing, is giving it just a simpler name. Right now, I just call it that Ironcat mouse. Now you can see the buttons are a little bit smaller than the Mini. I do wish they were a little bit bigger to make it easier to hit. They are a little bit thicker than the X2, but not as long. Now, if you look in the front, you will see the front is very similar to the X2 though. The way it slopes down, it's hard to see, but it does kind of groove in on the switches. Your fingers groove in. It's just a little bit easier to see on the X2. So in the front, it does have a very similar feel to the X2, but again, it tapers in like the Mini. Now this mouse right here, I believe is going to actually be very similar to the updated H version that's coming out soon for Pulsar, that's going to add 4K and a bigger hump in the back. And I think it tapers in the sides a little bit. So it actually might look very similar to this mouse. And if that's the case, I'm really going to look forward to it because I really enjoy the shape of this mouse. I like the shape better than the X2 and slightly better than the Atlantis Mini. Now, what it doesn't have going for it compared to these two mice is it is a bit heavier. And a lot of that probably has to do with the Hotswap switches, because I believe they add either 3 or 5 grams of weight. I can't remember. Somebody told me. I think it was Lamzu. So on my scale, you can see this thing weighs 68 grams. And if you take this off, it's 64. I believe they advertise 63, and it's with the shell on the back. Now, I guess you could fingertip it without the back shell if you wanted to get that weight reduction. So at 68 grams, it's not the lightest mouse, but it is lighter than some of the other mice that have been released, like the Vaxi XE and then the latest Zowie mice. So it definitely feels a little bit more substantial in your hand than the Lamzu and the X2 for sure. But I don't necessarily mind it, especially if you're using like a glass pad. I found the Pulsar glass pad, this mouse works really good on it. It's also not scratchy on that. So again, if you're looking for a really light mouse, this is probably not the mouse for you. But if you're looking for a mouse that's not heavy and has the ability to do Hotswap, this is definitely the best Hotswap implementation of all the mice that I currently have. And you get a ton of switches with it, which is really cool. So if you're looking for a mouse that's probably going to last you a really long time, because I think the build quality is very solid on this mouse, and you get an extra set of PTFE feet, you get glass skates, you get basically 5 sets of switches. If you wear down a set of switches, you got other ones to choose from. And out of all the different switches, the blue shell pink dot are my favorite, but I also enjoyed the implementation of the KL 8.0s and then the Huano black shell pink dot switches. The Omron and TTC Gold are really light actuating switches, so if you like those, a lighter switch, then you might like those two switches. But it gives you a lot of flexibility having all of those different switches, because people do have a preference for certain kind of switches. And you know, in the past, you know, you might like that shape, but you're upset because they didn't put the switch that you wanted. Well, if you do like this switch, you're probably gonna cut. So if you do end up liking this shape, which I think is a really good shape, you're not gonna have to worry, because you basically got 5 really good sets of switches, and I believe that no matter what you like, you're gonna find a set that you're gonna enjoy. And again, if you wear out those switches, you've got some to replace it. And you can also buy other types of switches to put in here. You like Zippy makes a decent switch that you could try out on here. It's really easy to swap these out, and I'm telling you, anybody can do it. So they've made it really easy and accessible for people. I think this is definitely a really cool implementation. And a lot of people said that it was just a gimmick, but I don't think it is. I think it's a really cool implementation. And the way that the switches worked with each one, I was thinking that there'd be some variance, and when you swap out the switches, that maybe it wouldn't be good from one to the next and you'd have to adjust it. But I didn't have to adjust anything. I just popped them in there and each one of them felt good to me. But you do have the option to make adjustments on this mouse. And build quality wise, I think it's pretty decent. It is a little bit creaky if you push real hard on the sides and down low. I don't get any actuation, but there's a little bit of creakiness. But honestly, you get that on just about the majority of the mice on my desk. If you push that hard, you're going to get a little bit of creakiness. But in game, when you're using it, I don't really feel that or hear any creaking. And definitely nothing rattling. And the scroll wheel is really nice, like I said. I feel like this is a very solidly built mouse. Now, I've put a good month of gaming on this mouse, and I've really enjoyed my time with it. I wish it was obviously a little bit lighter, of course, just because I've gotten used to lighter mice. But the weight definitely doesn't hold me back. I don't feel like it's heavy. It's not light. It's just, right in the middle. You definitely don't have any problem keeping this mouse steady. So if you do have shaky aim, this might be a good mouse for you. And the shape is really what it's about. I really love the shape. And so if this hump is too large for you, you can always swap out to the smaller one. As you can see, it's a little bit lower profile now. And it hits you more up here now, up on top. And now the hump is back here. So for me, this is the shell that I like, but it's nice that they give you both so you have options. Now, I don't have any way of testing click latency. I don't know what MCU this is using. If anybody knows, please leave a comment in the comment section. That would be very cool. But I don't notice any bad latency. But in gaming, I didn't feel like this held me back at all, and I did really well with this aiming wise. If I had to venture, I'd probably say it's probably somewhere around 4 milliseconds, similar to a Pulsar mouse or a Lamzu. But again, I didn't test it because I don't have an LDAT. And this is not a super well-known mouse, obviously, so there's probably nobody that's tested this. Maybe in China, I'm not sure. But if anybody does know, again, let me know. Anyways, we'll go over how to upgrade the switches, and then we'll do a sound test on all 5 sets of switches. And then after that, I'll go over the software before we go and do the conclusion. And we'll do a little sound test on the initial switches and the mouse in general before we get on to doing a sound test on the other 4 sets of switches. No rattling when you shake it. Scroll wheel's pretty quiet. These are the KL 8.0 switches that come default on the mouse. And again, as soon as I'm done testing these, we'll go on and swap to the other ones, and we'll do a sound test on each one. Side buttons. They're pretty snappy. And then the DPI button on the top. And that feels like a microdot switch. So as you can see, it has the area right here to hot swap them without having to open up the case, which is really cool because most of the mice that you can do a hot swap on, you have to open up the whole mouse casing just to get to it. So this is kind of a little neat little method. So to open it, you can just take your little screwdriver, pull up, and push in. And then it comes out like this. It has like a little wire attaching to it. It's actually a pretty cool little method. And you can see the switch in there. The KL 8.0 switch is also known as Black Mamas. So we'll go ahead and try and use the little switch puller that it comes with. You can also use this for pulling switches on a mechanical keyboard. It's a pretty nice little switch puller. It's right there. So that was fairly easy to do that swap. It was. Now I'm not going to film swapping each switch, but what we'll do is I'll do a little montage of how each one of the switches sounds. So here's the Omron switches. And here's the GTC Gold switches. And here's Huano Black Shell Pink Dot. And finally, my favorite switch, the Huano Blue Shell Pink Dot. So this is the software for the Ironcat mouse. Very basic. Got a battery indicator here, keybinds right here. You can keybind up to 8 different keys, which are all pointed out right here. By default, the sleep time is set to 1 minute, and you can set the debounce time here. Right here, you can set the DPI steps. There's up to 6 steps that you can change. And right here, you can set the pulling rate. It comes default to 1000 hertz. LOD is defaulted to 1 millimeter. You can set the DPI effects here. And as always, I recommend keeping ripple control, angle snapping off. And you can set motion sync on and off on this mouse, which is an option that's not always available on some of the 3395 sensor mice. So that's nice that they include that. Right here, this gives you a shortcut to the mouse pointer options, which is always nice too. Right here is a macro section if you are into that. And then right here, the RGB lighting that you can adjust. You can set the brightness, the speed, and dormancy time. Very simple, basic software. I always appreciate simple software like this. Anyways, that's it for the software, and let's get back to the review. So in conclusion, I really enjoyed my time with this mouse, and I do think for $150, I do think it's worth it. Like I said, you get a ton of stuff with this mouse. It's probably really a $100 mouse, and you get about $50 worth of stuff. You get a mouse pad that's worth about $25, and then you get about $24 worth of switches. Switches tend to be about $8 for a set, and then you got four extra sets plus the one that it comes with. Now, it would be cool to see a standalone version that doesn't have all the extras, but still the Pro version. But I don't know if they'll ever have anything like that. But again, I don't have any problem recommending this mouse at $150. It doesn't have 4K like some of the upcoming mice. Battery life is pretty good on the mouse. On a full charge, I got a good week of use of hardcore gaming on this mouse. And if you're someone that was looking forward to an X2H that has the high hump in the back and the tapered in sides, and you don't care about 4K, then perhaps this is the mouse for you. And again, it comes in multiple different colors: white, solid black, and then transparent white and transparent black. Is it my favorite mouse of my collection? I would say no, but it's definitely one of my top mice for sure. It's definitely the most interesting mouse that I have in my collection. And if I was just going to keep one, it might actually be this one, just because, like I said, it comes with a bunch of switches. It's got a bunch of different feet on it. So I think it's going to last a long time, and I'm able to swap out switches later on if they wear down, or if I just want one that feels a little bit different. So it's a very flexible mouse. It's light enough for me, and it performs well. It definitely, shape-wise, is probably my favorite shape of all my mice. If it was just a little bit lighter, it would probably be my favorite mouse that I have. That's really the only thing. If it was just 10-15 grams lighter, this mouse would be the ultimate recommendation for me. And if it had 2K or 4K, definitely be something that'd be value added. Maybe they'll do an updated version of this mouse. That would be cool. I really don't have a contact with Ironcat. I've never been able to communicate with them. But if you're watching this video, please give me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. As far as I know, this is the only, at the time of this review, it's the only review in English. All the other reviews I saw were in Chinese, and I think I saw some in Japanese. Which is the reason I wanted to do it, because I thought it was a very interesting mouse. And it's been out, I think, since the summer, and nobody's done a review in English. And now that Mechkeys carries it, it is easier for someone in the United States or other places to obtain it. Which is the main thing, because while you can order things off of Taobao, sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. And you may be able to save a little bit of money from ordering off of Taobao, but again, it's not the easiest thing to do. If you already have something set up, an account set up with them, or you have a way to get it from there, then you might check there first. But for everyone else, I would check Mechkeys if you were interested in this mouse. So my final conclusion is this is the most interesting mouse that I've used in the last year, I would say. And I think it's worth the money. It's an excellent mouse. It performs well, and you have a lot of cool options. So if you want to get it, I'll have a link in the description. And I do have a code that you can use, code Gen3D. I don't get any money if you use it, but you do get $5 off if you do use it. Anyways, that's all I got today for this review. Hopefully you found it enjoyable and hopefully informative. If you did, smash that like button. I always appreciate it. And if you haven't subbed yet, consider subbing. And I got lots more to come, of course, as always. I've got a good backlog of reviews, so no shortage of content, and there's more content on the way. So anyways, have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Later.